Welcome back to the Sync My Music podcast. I really appreciate all of you guys for the really cool feedback and comments you gave me on last week's episode, where I did something a little brave, I guess, and I let you guys know about a situation where I was fired from composing pretty much my biggest film gig of my career, and how much that really took a ding and a chunk out of my confidence. Didn't want to tell that story, was really not happy to want to do that, but as I released it and just hit that final button to publish, I was really glad that I did, because as I even said in that video or that podcast, that this is about sharing the burden with other people and not carrying these things ourselves. And so I'm telling you guys to do this all the time. Reach out to somebody, especially if you're in Sync Academy, and let somebody know how you're feeling. If you're feeling bummed out, and sort of let us all share your burden. But I have to lead by example as well. I can't just keep preaching at you guys and not do it myself. So I'm really happy that I did put that out there. If you missed last week's episode, definitely go back and listen to it. I think mostly what you'll get from it is just an understanding that you're not the only one that's felt like you don't belong in this business. You're certainly not the only one that feels like you might not be worth it. You might not be skillful enough, or that you don't have what it takes, quote unquote, to get to the point where you belong in this business and you've earned your place and you're earning some great income. I've definitely struggled with that, and you'll hear from last week's episode that has certainly been a reality in my life. But what I want to talk about in today's episode is about valuing yourself as a sync licensing producer. I think a big issue for many just producers and musicians in general is because most of our lives we've been pretty much ignored. I mean, let's just be honest about it, right? Like we most of us have had a band. We've all played those gigs where nobody really shows up. We've put out the little flyers. We've tried to create social media, whatever, viral campaigns or music videos, or you name it. Like, we've all been there, right? In one form or another. But unfortunately, for most of us, that experience has led to us being ignored and just not noticed by a lot of people, sometimes not even our friends and family. So unfortunately, with a lot of musicians and producers, we are conditioned in a way to undervalue ourselves, because when we're constantly putting music out and constantly trying to get attention and never really get it, we just sort of get used to the idea that most people don't value what we're doing, right? And so we unfortunately create a really bad pattern, kind of a story we're telling ourselves, that our music, what we're doing with our careers, is just not that valuable. And so we unfortunately will accept really, really bad deals for ourselves, and we'll kind of give away our music for next to nothing because we don't value it. And that is just a reality of being a musician in this modern world. So what I want to talk about in today's episode is some ideas or some advice I can give to you guys to try to boost your value, to boost your concept of yourself in terms of how much value you really are bringing this particular industry, the sync licensing business, because you bring a lot of value, and this entire industry is depending on people like you to keep supplying high quality music. It might not feel real to you. You might still don't believe me, but if it weren't for producers like us, like me and you, music libraries don't have a chance of staying in business. They need us. They need people like us to keep their lights on, so that the music or the video producers, the TV show producers, the film editors, the people, music supervisors, everybody who needs music for their content, so they can keep getting the music that they need. Okay. And another reason why I think this episode is bubbling up now, why I really want to talk about it, is because I've been getting some emails from people who have been seeing that their library that they've worked with for 5-10 years is now suddenly changing the terms and starting to cut in on their writer share and saying, hey, I know that we used to give you 100% of your writer share, but now due to some extenuating circumstances or some new deal that we have together with some of our distribution partners, we have to now cut into your writer share. And so I've heard that from a few members, and it's definitely not good news. I don't like hearing that. It's not a great bit of information to obviously get. And usually what I tell anybody who is being confronted with that kind of a change, especially after you've already been working with this library for so long, And assuming you're getting good placements and you're getting your writer share, what do you do when they come to you and say, hey, we need you to take a 50% pay cut? I'm really not in any position to tell you you should or should not take that deal, because every producer is going to be in a different position. Some of you guys really rely on those royalties to keep your lights on, to feed your family, to really just support yourself. So walking away from a library that you've got a 5-year relationship with because of the 50% cut, I can understand how that causes. It's almost like in either situation, it's a lose-lose, it feels like, because if you walk away, you got to start from scratch with a new library. But if you say yes, you're taking a 50% cut. At the same time, 50% of some income is better than a big risk of going to a new library that you don't know is actually going to produce for you. So I'm not in any position to tell people this is what you should or shouldn't do, because you are a unique individual with your own considerations and your own responsibilities and your own expectations of what you want to get out of this business. But with some of these deals getting handed down lately, it's certainly not a new thing. I've heard of various libraries out there that start to kind of offer these less than ideal deals for producers like you and I. So what I want to do is sort of be one voice out there that kind of is an advocate for you, the producer. Okay, I'm not advocating for libraries right now. I'm not advocating for music supervisors, anybody else in our equation, in our industry. I really have from the start been an advocate for you, the sync licensing producer that partners with a library. I really want to give you guys some motivation and hopefully boost you up a little bit, so that when you do get offered some of these deals, you can at least make an informed, educated decision on what you want to do with them, and not just immediately, which is what a lot of producers do, discount yourself and go, well, I'm just lucky to even make anything, so whatever, I'll just sort of accept these really bad deals because I'm used to people just ignoring me. So getting a couple of bucks here and there, that's better than being ignored, right? You can see how the kind of low self-esteem mentality kind of creeps in there. And it really doesn't help us. It doesn't, not only does it not help you as an individual producer, but the entire sync licensing business suffers in terms of some of these really less than ideal deals that are offered out there start to become more standard, because more and more producers are just like, yeah, whatever, I guess I'll take it. Who cares, right? So it kind of hurts all of us because there's no union, we don't have any sort of centralized organization where we can all get together and sort of look out for each other that way. We just don't have the infrastructure to do that right now. So it is about an individual choice. And so when you think you don't have power, just remember this, that your choice to accept or not accept a deal is your power. So you always have that power, okay? So as I briefly talked about, I do want to just explain why in sync licensing you are essential, because libraries absolutely need you to stay in business for themselves to actually continue working for their clients. Now imagine if you're a music library owner, how could you stay in business if you don't have sync licensing producers that are actually pitching to your catalog and actually constantly resupplying your catalog with new tracks every single month, 50 to 100. So if you didn't have sync licensing producers doing this, are you, the music library owner, going to go open up your DAW and crank out 100 tracks a month? No, you don't have the ability to do that. A lot of library owners aren't even producers themselves. They're just better kind of business people. So this is what I mean, that you are essential. Like you are definitely needed for music libraries to be able to continuously create new music for their catalog. And the reason why that new music needs to keep going in there is because clients that they serve always are looking for the latest, the hottest, the newest stuff that can really help them with whatever piece of content that they need music for. So if it's a brand new reality TV show and there's a lot of youth appeal to it, are they going to want to use music from 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Probably not. They want to go to a library that has stuff that sounds like it's on the charts right now, that the young generation is aware of, that's hip to, that really loves. So most libraries, they have to constantly be releasing new music every single month. And I've personally seen some of these libraries that have been around for a long time, longer than 10 years. The minute they stop releasing new music, it's the minute that their business dries up. I've seen it personally where they're just not putting out new music. And so their clients are like, I guess you guys are just kind of stale and you're not putting out good stuff. And we're going to look elsewhere essentially to try to find that cutting edge sound that we really need for our project. So libraries need to continuously release, and that means they continuously need you, producers, to actually supply them with that high quality music. Okay. So never forget that yes, we do need to be in a service mindset. We need to be aware that we're here to serve the needs of other people, but we are also valuable. There's also a very important role that we play in this business. Okay. And it takes everybody. I can't say that any one person is more valuable than the next, but I would say that without us, there really is no sync licensing industry, because where's the music coming from, right? They can't all just go to established artists and pay these huge fees. Not everybody's made of money. Some people need to come to us for basically the quote unquote cheaper deal, but still pay us nice fees to be able to use our music. So without us, there really isn't this industry that even exists. So we are very, very essential, as well as the library. The library is very essential, and the music supervisor and the editor and the reality TV show producer, right? Everybody is equal here in terms of we all need each other to keep this thing moving along, right? Now, another thing, and this always bothers me, is especially just kind of with artists in general, that when they complain about poor deals, like especially back in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was really kind of sad to just see so many of these artists that were complaining that, their labels had taken advantage of them, and they'd signed these deals that basically took ownership of their entire careers, and they couldn't get out of these deals. And my first thought was, all right, who put the gun against your head? Because it sounds, the way they were talking about it, it sounds like somebody came up to them and literally forced them, or maybe committed some fraud, told them one thing about their deal, and then had them sign this other contract that was completely different. And, if that's the case, then they should definitely be able to get out of a contract that was fraudulent, right? They can hopefully make a proven case that they told us that it was going to include these terms, but when we signed the contract, it included this completely other set of terms that wasn't what was agreed upon. But that's not what happens. Usually it's artists that are just not aware of what they're signing. They're just signing these things and just excited because they just see money in front of them, or they just see like this potential of a career. They're sort of like, they've already thought past the sale, right? They already are saying yes to working with a major label or whatever it is, but they're not taking the time to realize, what does this contract actually mean for you? Because a lot of them, I think it's about fear. If I say no to this big deal, then I might never get another one again. So you're just kind of taking whatever's in front of you, right? So I usually I feel bad for them, but at the same time, I feel like, there's also personal responsibility here in terms of, poor deals or bad deals, especially here in the sync licensing industry. They are never, ever forced upon you. I've never heard of one person who was coerced or threatened to sign a deal with anybody. I have never heard of anything like that happening. And if anybody does do that to you, go immediately to the authorities, go to a lawyer, go to somebody and actually take action if you need to. But that's not what's happening in the real world. What's happening is there's an offer being presented to you, and we, the producers, are voluntarily saying yes or no to that offer. That's it. It's not anything more complicated than that. So if a library does come to you and they say, hey, you know what, we need to take exclusive rights of your music forever, no reversion clause, no consideration fees, you get no sync fees, and we need to cut into your writer share 50%. Well, right off the bat, not looking like a great deal, right? So there has to be some great reason why you would give up all of those potential sources of income for something you want to get out of this library. So if you do have that really valuable pro, something in the pro column that's like making up for all those cons, then you are voluntarily saying yes. And please do not, after you say yes, go around complaining later on to say, they screwed me because they took away all this stuff and they took away my writer share, and now I don't have that. It's like, yeah, but you, taking responsibility, you said yes to it. You, for whatever reason, signed your name voluntarily on that contract. Now, if you decide later you don't want to work with them, that's fine. You can change your mind. You don't have to be married to them for the rest of your life. But to go and complain, then that's where it just starts to bother me, because it's like, well, that was not, if you were forced at gunpoint to sign that contract, absolutely, you are a victim and they screwed you over, and you should go get your retribution or get your justice, whatever it is, right? But that's not what we're dealing with in this business. We're just talking about people who sign crappy deals voluntarily, and then later they have buyer's remorse. That's what we're really dealing with. So just be aware of that stuff. When you get offered a deal, just be aware that you are taking that responsibility upon yourself, okay? And you really kind of forfeit that right to complain about it later. You can change your mind later and say, you know what, this contract isn't working for me anymore. Are you guys willing to change this? If not, I'm gonna have to go elsewhere. You have that power all day long. That's where your power and your responsibility can come in. But you're not a victim here. We are not victims here. You can always go, of course, to another library if you get a deal like this, or if you've been working with a library like I've been seeing, and the terms of the deal gets changed. Your power is your choice. You can always say, you know what, no thanks. I'm going to start working on branching out to another library. Or if you've already been working with another library, maybe the one that's offered you this 50% cut, you kind of put the brakes a little bit on submitting your tracks to them, and put a little bit more emphasis and energy into this other library that you think is going to be a better fit for you. So, depending on how you want to balance that out. But I understand, sort of jumping ship from something that's been a sure thing and it's been constantly providing you with placements and income to go to an unsure thing that, sure, you get the 100%, but you get the uncertainty as well of, is this actually going to work out? I understand, and that's not an easy choice to make. So sometimes being able to bounce between two different libraries, one that maybe you can get the 100% writer share, and then the one that's keeping you at the 50%, and kind of see basically in terms of, it's not even really about how many placements they get, but it's really about just pure dollars. Like if the second library who gives you that 100% writer share gets you one placement, but the other library with the 50% gets you, let's say 100 placements, but the one placement you got actually paid for more than all the 100 placements, you can decide which one you want to go in. Now, the other consideration with that is, will that one placement air over and over again, or was it a one-time kind of a promo and now it's off the air? Maybe those 100 placements you got with the 50% cut, those are going to air over and over again for many, many years because they're on TV shows or on something that actually will air just kind of naturally. That could be another reason why you want to stick with them, because that could be 5 or 10 years of income that'll way outpace this single placement. So again, these are all the considerations we have to think about when we're making that decision of who we really want to work with, okay? The next thing I want to talk about is in terms of valuing yourself and making sure the library does value you and doesn't continuously keep chipping away at you, because I've definitely worked with a library that did this. I'll tell you guys that story. In fact, I'll tell you now. So one of the libraries I worked with for a long time occasionally would chip into my writer share for these particular opportunities. It wasn't across the board, but when there was an opportunity to directly get one of my songs placed in a TV show, they would say, listen, we have this opportunity to guarantee your tracks get placed, right? When you submit your tracks to a library, there's no guarantee of anything. You just have a chance of getting placements, right? But sometimes you'll get these opportunities through a library where they're the only provider of music for a particular TV show. Okay, so there were various TV shows that my library were getting the ins with, and so they could directly pitch to. But in order to do that, the production company was going to take all of the publishing so that the library got cut out of that. And so the library had to have some reason to do this, so they would go into the writer share. So I would basically be splitting my writer share with the library, which, yes, you hope you can keep 100% of it. But when it comes down to that situation, I wanted 50% of a watermelon rather than keeping 100% of a grape and letting some other producer get all those placements. I wanted to be a part of that. So those kind of situations, I'm always a little more flexible with my writer share. But what would happen is, as the years went on and these would come up more and more, my share got smaller and smaller and smaller. And sometimes it would get down to, sometimes it would be 75-25. I think that's where it started, actually. It wasn't 50%. So 75-25. I'm keeping at least the vast majority of my writer share. So I was like, okay, cool with that. Then it cut down to 60-40, 50-50, and then I think 40-60. And at one time, it got all the way down to, I want to say literally like 12%, because they wanted me to split my writer share with literally like 6 other people, and all these other hands were in the deal. And that's when I finally just had enough. And I just said, you know what? I'm doing all of this work for this music, and you want to offer me 12% of the writer share for this? I'm sorry. It's just, for me, that became a pride thing, I guess, where, yeah, I probably could have made some money with those placements, but I was like, I'm not even getting close to any lion's share of the work that I'm doing here. So this is starting to feel like slavery, and I'm sorry, just no thanks. And I just started rejecting them. Now, the reason why I've told that story is because the mistake I made in that situation is that I did not teach them to respect me. Okay, you have to teach people how to value you and respect you. It's not automatic. Just because you make music and you're working with a library, they don't automatically assume that you are a high value producer, right? You have to teach them that. You have to condition them to see you as a very valuable person. And how do you let them know that? Well, by not backing down, by not constantly compromising and saying yes to increasingly, crappier and crappier deals, essentially. Whenever you feel that point is for you, it's not probably the same point for me. It'll be not the same, point in the sand for a line in the sand for anybody else. It's for you, whatever you decide that is. If you're willing to go past that, okay, but accept that they're now going to see, okay, well, they accepted this, so let's see how much more we can cut them down. Let's see how much more we can cut them down. Let's see how much more we can go, right? And that's because it's not on them. That's actually on us. We got to take that responsibility. That was our decision to not draw a line in the sand to say, this is how much I value myself. Because if you don't do that, how are they can't read your mind. They don't know how much you value your music or what you think is important. So we have to, as sync licensing producers, value ourselves, and we have to teach our music library partners how to respect us and how to know that we are not somebody you can walk all over, and we're not somebody you can continuously just sort of like worsen the deals and cheapen things up for us. We do demand a certain level of value that we're providing for the library, okay? That comes from us, though. That does not come from them. Again, a big theme in all of this, if you're not catching it, is try not to play the victim on any of this kind of stuff. Try to take your own power, take responsibility for how you're being treated and for the deals that you're signing, because you have a lot of power in all of this kind of stuff. And the more you stay in that mindset, the less you're gonna feel like all of this stuff is just happening to you and you're just getting screwed over. And that's the common story that I've been told and heard from so many producers out there. And it's a broken record to me at this point, because I feel so bad for them, because I'm like, I've never really felt that way. It took me a while to learn that lesson. I've definitely felt like things were getting kind of screwed over, but it just doesn't feel good to be in that state of powerlessness where it's like things are just happening to me. The more that I stay in this place of I have responsibility, I can teach people how to respect me. I can decide whether or not I do want to work with certain kind of deals and certain kind of libraries. You're in a much better mindset, and people are going to see it. They're going to feel it. They're going to want to treat you better and with more respect. It's absolutely true. So with all of that being said, of course, what I want to end this episode on is finding the balance. So yes, we are valuable. Yes, we should be respected. Yes, we should be compensated fairly for the work and the effort and the value that we bring to the table. However, we are still here to serve. Right? So it's this sort of contradiction where we are valuable, but we're here to make sure that other people's lives are easier, right? If we don't do that, we're not going to be valued at all. We're not going to be getting any sort of income at all. So we do need to find that balance of not being arrogant, not being egotistical, not being narcissistic in terms of it's all about us and we're the ones providing all the value and we're the ones doing all the work and why aren't they paying us more money? Being too on that side of the equation is not helpful, but also being on the other side where you're just giving away everything that you do and you don't even value yourself and you're just completely giving up all of your writer share and you're just like, whatever, I don't care because I don't, I'm used to being ignored, so I have no value. That's also not healthy either, okay? So finding this middle path, this middle way between the two where we have confidence, but we're also useful to them, right? We know that the value we bring is should be compensated, and we're going to steer our efforts towards making sure somebody else's life is easier so that their clients' needs are met directly, okay? Finding that balance, that is the key to getting to where you want to go in this business and not being, that sort of bitter, jaded musician, that producer who bails out of the business after a few years and just says, yeah, it's totally screwed up and everybody screws you over and, libraries aren't looking out for you. And it's just so sad to see that because I know the story. I know their mindset. I know where they're going with that. And you don't have to follow that path. And so I hope by the end of this episode, it gives you a little bit of a clearer vision how to steer clear of that. And again, there's going to be so many gray areas and all this kind of stuff. I wish I could have a complete checklist for look out for this, look out for that. But everybody's different. You're going to have different things that make sense for you, for your career, for your expectations, for the value that you feel that you're bringing to your library. So my only goal, I guess, in this episode is just to help you to remind yourself and to help build confidence in yourself, to trust just that little voice, trust your gut, trust that feeling that you get that feels like, this just doesn't feel right. Or, I think I'm being taken advantage of here. Or, what, they just keep pushing and edging away at my value here with these kind of deals that they're offering. So listen to that little voice. Sometimes that voice is screaming for a reason and it's telling you, and I think there's some real value in that to steer you clear of some of these deals that can be really predatory and really not so helpful. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I really always appreciate your guys' attention for this podcast. I'm digging this no video vibe here. It's really, really fun. I'm liking it. I'm feeling a little more loose, a little bit more like I can be a lot more vulnerable in an interesting way. I kind of feel like I am able to even tell more stories that I've really never told actually on my podcast before or on my YouTube videos. So I plan on telling much more of these stories in the future and kind of letting you guys know about how that feels. Because I guess the big part of it here is that when I am in this sort of identity of a mentor, of an educator, of a teacher, I kind of mistakenly, it's a mistake, but I mistakenly feel like I need to show this kind of perfect version of myself, to show you guys, here's the golden model, the golden example of how to succeed in music licensing. But I have to realize that like it is also about being honest and telling you guys like I've made mistakes, like I've screwed up, like I've like the firing story from last week, or like this one, like accepting lower and lower deals for myself. It's important for me, I think, to just be real with you guys and let you know about the real mistakes that I've made so that you know, first of all, hey, that's a real thing that can happen. And second of all, hopefully, a lot of you guys, you just learn from my wisdom. You just learn from my experience and not have to go through a lot of these things yourself or not let them kind of get to you as much as they did to me. That's really what I'm doing all this for. That being said, we will catch you guys in just 1 week from today. Have a great, fantastic weekend and week ahead, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Sync My Music podcast. If you enjoyed the show and want me to do more episodes, all that I ask is that you leave me a review on whatever platform or app that you're listening to. It just takes a few seconds. I'll never charge for this podcast, and I want to keep it 100% ad-free. And your review right now will help me do just that. Thank you so much.